Welcome back, everyone, to NeuroAlchemy, where science meets soul and where healing becomes multidimensional, intuitive, and profoundly possible. I'm Dr. Sarah Young. Here on NeuroAlchemy, we define every term as if you're hearing it for the very first time because clarity creates safety, and safety opens the door to deeper healing opportunities. This is a space where we slow the conversation down, we honor the nervous system, and explore what becomes possible when healing is approached with presence, curiosity, and compassion rather than force. Before we begin, a gentle note: some conversations on this podcast touch on trauma, dysregulation, and personal healing experiences. Please listen in a way that feels supportive, grounding, and respectful of your nervous system. Today, I'm joined by Lara Bokovay, a guide who supports women, especially mothers, in regulating their nervous systems on a cellular level and returning to deep internal safety. Through her lived experience of trauma, single motherhood, and long-standing dysregulation, Lara found her way back not through force or fixing, but through frequency, intuition, and embodied nervous system healing. Her work centers on permission to slow down, to listen inward, and to understand that reactivity is not a flaw, but a survival adaptation that can gently reorganize into safety and truth. Lara, before we dive in, I'd love to begin with a gentle arrival check-in. How are you arriving today, either physically, emotionally, or energetically as you come into this conversation?
I feel very grounded. I had hot yoga this morning, so I had an hour and a half of yin. So I'm coming in grounded, coming in clear.
Love that. Hot yoga sounds amazing, especially in the season we're in. How cold is it where you are? And you said Ottawa, Canada?
Yeah. So I mean, we're in Celsius. So right now it's about -20. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. So yeah, it's
So that must have felt really nice to do some hot yoga today.
yeah. No, okay. So it's about 60. No, -20. What is -20? So it's about -4, -5 for you guys.
No, thank you. Do you step outside after you do your hot yoga?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like, you're used to it. Like that, where I'm from in Canada, in Ottawa, it's the capital with the most extreme temperatures in the world. So we go from like it could be 100 degrees outside to -5. So, like we're used to the giant swing of things. So our bodies climatize. But yeah, no, it's nice. I had my socks on for the first part just to like de-thaw. And then afterwards I made sure that I was all bundled up, hats, mitts, scarves, and then like scurried to my car. So yeah, it's fresh outside.
Very nice. Before we go further, I'd love to ground a few key terms that will come up throughout today's conversation. We do this so listeners can stay oriented and safe in their bodies as they listen. When you talk about regulating the nervous system on a cellular level, what does that actually mean in a lived, embodied term?
So, I mean, there's so many different things that we could do to help regulate our nervous system. So, from understanding our reactions to yoga, as mentioned, there's so many actions and breath work and all that kind of stuff that you could do that actually regulates the nervous system exterior. However, when it comes to actually cellularly regulating the nervous system, there's so many different frequency things that you could do and supplementation that you can take internally in the body to actually help your body regulate itself. So for me, I've gone on a journey of, okay, I could do the shadow work. I can do the emotional work. I could, you know, but at the same time too, if you could help give your body the boost internally, then it helps everything externally be a lot smoother. So, one of the examples is I use a light frequency technology that helps heal your body on a cellular basis. So it helps your body regenerate its own stem cells to help your body calm itself, because when our body's in a state of fight or flight, when our nervous system is, reacting and trying to regulate itself, a lot of times all that stored fight or flight energy, trauma, you name it, is all stored in our fascia, in our muscles, in our body. So that's when I say cellularly, like there's so many things below the surface, below the external, below our reaction points that affect our day-to-day life. So there's a lot going on. And so, whether it is, frequency specific microcurrents, which is sound therapy, whether it is, I'm not quite sure what's happening right now. Is my camera still on your end?
Yes.
Okay. My computer's making a whole bunch of weird noises. So I don't know if everything's going to just implode in a second, but there's a lot of different things that are going on in the body from a frequency perspective that, if you can put your cells back into homeostasis, if you can give your cells a boost, then your external world looks a lot different. So like in my own lived experience, so with my daughter, I've been on a healing journey for the last 5 years. When I say healing journey, I mean, we're constantly healing and bettering ourselves, but I've been on a very, very direct path in healing myself. And rewiring and reprogramming myself to show up differently as a parent, as a mother, to lead my daughter. And I have tried so many different things, from different foods to exercises, like I said, to the emotional work. And the thing that sort of has taken me over to that next hurdle has been introducing frequencies into my daily life, because when you're calm, when you're grounded, when your nervous system can have that extra space, you can have more awareness. So it's like your nervous system needs to calm so that you can gain that clarity, so you can have that window, so you can get perspective, so you can make a different choice, so you're not as reactive. And even if we can get there 80% with diet and lifestyle, to actually heal your body on a cellular level to help release the fight or flight tension that is stored deep within your fascia, to, release some of that muscles and some of that emotion that's stored there for you to be able to give yourself a boost with frequencies that can get to there on a cellular level. It makes things a lot easier. And so even in my own, working with different clients and stuff like that, a lot of times I would run different frequencies through our sessions so they could stay calm and grounded enough and not go into fight or flight, so they can actually hear what I'm telling them, as opposed to being reactive and getting defensive, because that's what fight or flight is in action, right? Not being able to be receptive of what someone is witnessing within them. And so even running frequencies in my sessions with my clients allows for a much more deeper session, because there's not as much resistance.
How do you distinguish between being functional or coping and being truly regulated?
I mean, I don't so functional or coping, you're still triggered very, very, very fast. So nervous system, I mean, you're always regulating. You're never fully regulated. Like that's the beautiful thing with the nervous system, right? Like it's constantly in motion. And so when you're just coping, you're still reacting. And so when it comes to healing, you heal on layers. And so the whole point of doing the emotional work, finding how to regulate your nervous system, is so when something happens that throws you off your horse, you're able to get back on much faster. So sometimes, from a progression standpoint, sometimes if something were to throw you off your horse, it might take you months to get out of victim mode. Or, and then doing the work, then you're able to do it within a month or then a week. And then something throws you off your horse and you're able to say, okay, well, I know that life is happening for me, not to me. and then you don't stick in that victim mindset, and then you're able to move forward with almost instantly. And same thing too, when it comes to regulating your nervous system is supposed to regulate really, really fast, right? Like it's not that something doesn't throw somebody off, it's that they're cool, calm, and collected, that they have the space to actually observe, see what's going on, and then take calm, grounded, action forward instead of throwing the chaos and, adding fuel to the fire and all that kind of stuff. So, even when it comes to regulating your nervous system, now we're all human. We're still going to react, but those reactions aren't as dramatic. That's, the best the best word to use. They're not as dramatic. They're not as, "Oh my gosh, this is a fight or flight, I need to put out the fire, do or die sort of situation." You're able to say, "Okay, so you have that space to regulate." 'Cause, you know, if something spills, something's gonna spill. You're still gonna go like, right? You're still gonna gasp, you're still gonna hold your breath, you're still gonna do something. That's just normal. But, you could gasp and then say, "Okay, we're gonna clean it up later." Or, the old me would have gasped and absolutely panicked that something had to spill because I had to fix it right away. So that's the difference. When we can regulate, we don't go into the drama. I used to be a drama queen. I mean, I still am a drama queen, but that, moving forward, don't get caught, you caught in that extra, noise. You don't get caught in that drama. You're able to sort of say, okay, and then you can move forward as opposed to being so reactive and explosive.
When you use the word truth, what are you pointing to internally? How is that different from trauma driven reactions?
So when we don't know, most of us don't know the truth. And when I say don't know the truth, it's like, something can happen and you can get really angry. And then when you actually peel back the layers of that anger and what actually made you angry, the root of that feeling is actually probably deep sadness and hurt, not anger. Anger is the emotional reaction, not the true feeling of it all. So even though anger, yes, is a feeling on its own, depending on different context, but you know what I mean? So a lot of times we actually don't know the truth. We don't understand why we are the way that we are. We don't see and have the perspective shift or different perspectives that it could be because of some different situation, all of the above. And so when I say truth and not trauma, it's coming back to actually what is going on for you. What was the story, and what have you been wired and programmed with, like, truthfully, right? And then as opposed to being reactive and sort of leading through the lens of trauma, leading through the lens of reactivity, leading through the lens of victimhood, like leading through all of the above, it's like, okay, well, what is the actual truth of the scenario, right? Like the truth is really uncomfortable. So it's like a lot of times too, when you're working with people, okay, it's a very uncomfortable truth to say that this is actually your programming, right? Like you're wired like that. Like that's not true. Like for example, and we're in the throes of after the holidays and all that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest truths and one of the biggest things that I've learned through the process with actually witnessing my daughter and having my daughter as like a catalyst for my healing, one of the biggest things has been such a distorted relationship I had with food and my own body dysmorphia. And what I mean by that, and so when you peel back the levels of truth, I always thought my body shape was something that wasn't my body shape. It was until I saw her run around, butt naked when she was 3 that I was like, "Oh my gosh, she has my body shape." I've been trying for years to attain a shape that's not even my own. I've been trying to go, work out, go to the gym, starve myself, do all the crazy things that we're conditioned in society to do to obtain a body shape that isn't actually my body shape. There was no fat on her when she was 3. That was just her body shape. And my body shape is exactly hers. When we're standing, when she, like all of her mannerisms, it's like looking at a doppelganger. It's like looking at myself in the mirror. And so why did I hate that body for almost 4 decades? when that's been my body shape the entire time. I've been trying to attain a figure that's not even attainable. So the truth, that's what I mean by the truth. The truth is, no, that's them. That's them and this is you. Why are you holding on to this crazy, insane reality that's not actually reality? So it's like, what is the truth of it? What is the truth of the matter? Is it deep sadness? Is it deep hurt that you're actually processing instead of the anger and frustration? Like, why are you the way that you are? So many of us don't even understand why we are the way that we are. And having that understanding with why we react, what we do, why we choose different things at different points. You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea I had no self-love, self-worth, and self-value. I was probably masking that my entire life until I actually realized what that looks like in a lived experience. So it's like, it's coming back to what actually is true, what is actually real, as opposed to living our lives on autopilot and just living through the lens of trauma or victimhood.
You often speak about permission. Why is permission so central to nervous system repair?
Because it's honoring yourself. Like I said, if you know why you are the way that you are, you're allowed to give yourself the grace and deep inner standing and inner knowing of why you show up the way you show up, instead of beat yourself up even more for being human. And like, when you look at like survival mechanisms and all that kind of stuff, like, you don't actually look at it as survival mechanisms. You think it's bad behavior. And you're like, okay, well, for a child who is 4, 5, and 6, that was how they survived to be loved. That's not bad behavior. That's survival. And so when you understand that deeper, or when you can actually see it that way, you give yourself permission to actually move forward without hating on yourself, right? Like, it gives you permission to say, whoa, okay, I don't like that old version of me. This is who I know that I am, that I know that I want to be. And so it gives you permission to rewrite your story, to move forward, as opposed to constantly going back and beating yourself up for conditioning and programming that you weren't even conscious that you were developing and building, right? Like, children do everything a lot of times unconsciously. Like, it's instinct for us to, okay, we see that works. We see that gets a reaction. That's what we're going to do. Okay, I'm going to do this behavior because it gets this reaction. Like, it's all conditioning. It's all conditioning on performing, and it's all conditioning to not get abandoned. And so many of these, survival, when we say survival safety techniques, those are truly how children learn to survive, learn how to, continue to go without actually consciously saying, okay, I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just innate behavior that over the years, and so many times we see, when we still have our emotional flaps, we're still reacting like we would if we were a child being scolded. We still react like if we were a child. Like, we continue as adults to revert to our childlike state when we're dealing with conflict, when we're dealing with uncomfortable situations. We go back to how we responded as a child. And so it's rewiring that as an adult, because now you are safe. Now, if you're abandoned, who cares? You can stand on your own 2 feet. Like, there's a lot. You have to retrain yourself, recondition, reprogram, brainwash the old you, reprogram the new you. You have to do all those things to then, function differently, to actually have the life that you want, not always showing up in the same patterns that kept you safe in the past. You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily need to do all the same things in the past that you did to keep yourself safe now in the adult version of yourself.
Absolutely. I think every moment is a new moment. It's a new opportunity to empower ourselves, to shift perspective, to make new choices. And I love that. Share a little bit more about your own nonlinear journey. from chronic dysregulation and survival into all the wonderful work that you bring into the world now?
I mean, like, my journey has been like unfurling. Like, like, we all have our own sort of healing path and all of the above. I was in corporate private sector. I left that, took a jump with there because my not only was my nervous system dysregulated, but my cortisol levels were just like through the roof. And I was having miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And then I left that career, took some time off, was just like, okay, what am I going to do next? And then I started creating my own business. In the process of doing that and, calming down my cortisol levels, got pregnant, pretty much, 3 months after I left that position. And then we moved into 2019 and, I was trying to build a business and have a newborn. And so that was adjustments. And then we moved into 2020 and the pandemic was the pandemic. And, we were, I pretty much couldn't work. I had to pivot my business. And then in that process, my marriage unraveled really, really fast. And so, then I was going through a separation and divorce and an isolation and, all of the above. And then as we move forward, it just really hasn't, it's been like one hurdle after the next. Like it hasn't, it hasn't been yeah. So, like from moving to, court systems to you name it, like, it's been, and then a huge physical injury. Like, I finally got a breath and then, pretty much took myself out and tore my Achilles, broke my hand. And then I was like, okay, now I have to navigate through that. So healing physically. And, when you have a young child and a giant bear of a dog, like, and you're a single parent, like it's a lot. And then, so you're constantly pivoting your business. I've been self-employed since 2018. So there's still all of that going on. So it's constantly, there's been hurdle after hurdle and, different moments of different perspective shifts through the process, my nervous system continues to regulate faster. So, like through the entire process of huge things that to many people would have just taken them out for a very long time, I've been supporting my nervous system, my body through nutrition and frequencies. Like I truly think that's what's been able to keep me going. Like it's been a lot within a very, very, very short amount of time. Like it's been a very intense 5 years. And I truly think that if I didn't have the support of frequencies, that I wouldn't be in the same position that I am today. So, like life continues, we all move forward, but knowing how to support your body is a game changer.
When I hear you sharing your story, it just reminds me, that's why I'd made that motion. It reminds me of a spiral. Like you've gone through these evolutions, almost like a Russian doll,
Yeah.
which in the moment doesn't feel very much like a gift, but I think in hindsight, I think you can see that for what it is, the gift that it is, and the gift that you bring not only to your own life and your daughter's life, but also the world and all the people you meet and speak with and work with.
No, it's been a journey, but I'm grateful for it, right? Like life truly happens for you, not to you. And I you don't have to like it, but yeah, it's it had to happen fast because it had to happen fast. So, here we are.
When someone has lived in survival for years, what are some signs that they're operating from adaptation rather than safety?
Really, I mean, so many women just aren't in alignment. And when I say that is, and what is alignment? So many has like, okay, well, what does that even mean? And you're just like, okay, well, if you're still feeling calm, or if you're still feeling stressed, or you're still feeling agitated, or you're still frustrated, if there's any of those emotions that don't feel like you're just like flowing through life, there's something out of alignment. And the challenging thing is so many people don't know that they're actually out of alignment. They just know that they're not fulfilled, but they don't think of it as out of alignment or nervous system regulation because these are new terms. You know what I mean? They're like, well, I'm always tired going to work, or yeah, like it sucks to do this. And you're like, okay, well, why are you doing it? And then they go, and then it's like fear and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, literally life, like, when you break down your life, if there's something that you're not fully content with, fully at peace with, there's something in you that's out of alignment. Something in you still is performing out of fear, still is doing things because of conditioning, because of fear. Like if you have a lot of fear at the root of everything, you're still in autopilot. You're still in survival mode, right? If there's anything that is throwing you off, that's stressing you out, that's spiraling you out in any pillar of your life, you're still operating from a place of survival. Because it's normal to react. Like I said, humans, we will react. But if you're stuck in it, if you have these negative thoughts that just consume your life, you're still acting and reacting based on fear. Fear of shame, fear of judgment, fear of you name it. Fear of abandonment, fear of being cast out of society, who knows? You're still operating from this fear-based. And so the key is when you can regulate your nervous system, when you can do the healing work, you no longer operate out of fear. You just go, okay. And then you move forward because you're being guided by your intuition. You're trusting the universe. You're trusting the process, and as opposed to fighting and resisting every step of the way. But truly, anyone who is still operating from scarcity, from lack, from fear, you're still in this reactive mode out of fear of, the worst possible scenario.
You speak powerfully about parenting from truth rather than trauma. What begins to shift in parenting when a mother's nervous system starts reorganizing towards safety?
You actually have the space to parent. Like you actually have the space to parent. Now, some moms are great at being cool, calm, and collected because their nervous system can regulate itself really fast. But the average person cannot. The average person raises their voice, yells, gets flustered. It becomes reactive. And when you can calm your own nervous system, then your child feels safe. Emotionally, physically, mentally, your child feels safe. So, one of the biggest lessons in my own parenting journey was my daughter was a direct mirror of what was going on for me. And instead of saying, okay, yeah, she's being a little much today or she's whatever, it's like, well, you're being a little much. If she's being a little much, that's actually on you. What's going on for you? Going back to drama queen. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on for you? If your child is reactive, it's because that's learned behavior. They don't know how to regulate their nervous system because the parents don't know how to regulate their nervous system. A child learns by their core, that nature nurture environment. And so our children are a direct reflection of the environment, of the parent, of who leads them. And so in my having the awareness that my daughter is a direct reflection of me, if she can't regulate herself, it's because I can't regulate herself. If she, doesn't feel safe having a conversation, it's because I didn't make it a safe place for her to bring that to me. So it's like everything that your child demonstrates is like a window into what you actually need to work on as an individual, as a parent. And so when you can heal yourself, doesn't matter where you are in the stage of parenting, whether they're grown or whether they're still young, if you can take ownership and actually heal yourself and start leading from a healed, embodied, regulated place, then you're showing them how to do it naturally. You lead the way by living the way. And then our children will follow that and will be able to neutralize things for our children moving forward. But it truly starts with healing the parent. And the reason that I say, I work with a lot of mothers with daughters because there's a lot of things that are very specific about women, like, and daughters and the female lineage from generational patterning and societal pressures that only a female daughter relationship would have. If you have, there's general things with having as a parent, but when you're actually rewiring body shame and body hate, very different for a little girl than it is for a little boy. And so when you're sort of rewiring those things and healing yourself, right? Like I can heal myself and, then my daughter can live a different life, growing up, not hating herself, not hating her body, not attaching her body size to her worth or self-value. Very different than, me leading the way for a little boy. Now he could see what I embody as a woman, but once again too, it's very different in when you come to actually look at the generational lineage of the insanities that have been passed down for generations. When you follow the lineage in the family, the female lineage, it's very apparent on what you can stop and rewire for your daughter.
You guide women through frequency, intuition, and internal safety rather than force. How do these approaches support lasting nervous system change?
Because you're actually healing on a cellular level. That's the thing. When you're using frequencies and you're putting your cells back into homeostasis, you are literally removing the memory of them to go into a natural state of fight or flight. So when you can actually heal cellularly, you are rewiring how your cells react in your body, how your neurotransmitters go. So that's the beauty of using frequencies because they're healing on a cellular level. So your body's not reacting, right? It's like your body sometimes isn't really connected with your mind. So it's like, sometimes a lot of times, like, we're humans and we're animals. So, when we're stressed, we'll sweat more. Even if we're like, "Oh no, like I'm not stressed." Like your mind's telling you you're not stressed, but your palms are sweating. Or you're like, "Yeah, like I'm not really hungry, but your tummy's really grumbling." Like our bodies lead the way and we choose not to listen to what our bodies are saying and vice versa. So when you can calm your nervous system, when you can actually put your cells back into homeostasis, when you can do those different things, then your mind can catch up to your body and your body can catch up to your mind. So you can start balancing each other out. But our bodies are huge guides that we don't even listen to. And so when you go through the next stressful thing and you know that you've healed on a cellular level, then you're like, oh, that was a really stressful situation, but I didn't have any sweat. Like my urine smelt the same. Like I wasn't going into a state of fight or flight. You know what I mean? So like you actually end up noticing when your body's calm, even if it would be a normal scenario that your mind would perceive as very high stress. Your body's no longer reacting. So you know that actually going back to, that intuition, that recognizing your body, recognizing what your body's saying, you realize you're like, oh no, I'm safe. My body's acting that I'm safe, I can be safe. I don't need to spiral out.
If you had one thing, one practice that you were going to recommend to our audience that you would want them to practice each day over the next 7 days, kind of like as a challenge, what might you recommend that they practice?
I mean, one of the good thing to sort of start off, when we're going back to the intrusive thoughts that come into us, one really good technique to understand how to rewire that disempowering belief within you to know if that's true or not true. If it's not true, right? If you know that something's not true, then catch yourself over 7 days, take a little sheet of paper and do tallies. Catch yourself on day one. So let's start on a Wednesday or whatever. On Wednesday, you're like, okay, how many times do I beat myself up throughout the day? And tally away. It could be 20 times that you shit on yourself. The next day, on Thursday, you'll tally again. And because now you're having the awareness of that negative self talk, on Thursday, it might be 17. And you'll be surprised by after a week of having the awareness of actually not negative self talking. After a week, that 20 number might be 6. And if you can continue life or moving forward with only having 6 moments of shame, guilt, it lightens the load. We don't know how much negative talk that we do on a day-to-day basis about anything, about any pillars in our life. And so from a self-love, self-care, self-value perspective of things, try doing tallies for a week and see where you start and then see where you finish, and you'll feel a lot lighter through the process.
That is so powerful. I love that. So, for all of our listeners out there, that is your weekly challenge from Lara. Every day, you're going to keep a tally count on, that negative internal voice, that part of you that shits on yourself. And you're just going to keep a tally and you're going to build that awareness. So, Lara, if listeners take one thing with them from this week, what permission would you want them to give to themselves?
Permission to have to choose differently. Like really, like, we're not trapped in anything. All this, even going back to that exercise, awareness is truly the beginning of choosing differently. We cannot choose differently until we have that awareness about ourselves. And that awareness or that understanding of what actually is true for us and our truth allows us the opportunity to choose differently. And when we choose differently, that's when change happens. So awareness is truly the beginning of change and allows us to actually build the life that we want and have the life that we want.
And for all of our audience out there, I'm going to include in the show notes how you can get in touch with Lara, how you can deepen the conversation with her. Lara, thank you so much for this deeply grounding and compassionate conversation. And
Thanks so
thank you
much for having me.
yes, and thank you to everyone listening to this episode of NeuroAlchemy, where the nervous system, intuition, and multidimensional healing meet. If today's episode resonated with you, you can explore more conversations or connect with her in the show notes. And until next time, take gentle care of your mind, your body, and your inner world. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.